Hey everyone, it's Emma here. And oh my goodness, do I have a story for you today. It's about something so simple, yet it completely made my day. You see, I had the best cup of tea from a roadside stall today, and I'm just bursting to tell you all about it. I was on my way to, well, that's not important right now, but the point is, I was feeling a little tired and just needed a pick-me-up. And you know what? This tiny little stall, almost hidden amongst the bustling city, appeared like a beacon of hope. Honestly, it felt like magic. The aroma of spices and brewing tea just drew me in. It was one of those perfectly crisp autumn mornings, the sun just starting to warm the air, and there I was, sipping this incredible tea. The chai wala, as we call them here, had this twinkle in his eye and a genuine smile as he handed me the steaming cup. It was the perfect blend of sweet and spicy, strong and comforting. It was more than just a cup of tea, it was a moment of pure bliss. I can still taste it. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. And don't forget, I release new videos daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills, so you can improve and enjoy your learning journey with me. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you just wake up and feel like you need to do something? Like, something good? Something beyond just, the usual grind? That's exactly how I felt last Saturday. I woke up, sun streaming through the window, a glorious, crisp autumn day, and I just knew I couldn't waste it binge-watching anything or scrolling endlessly online. I needed fresh air, purpose, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of redemption. Don't ask, long story for another time. Anyway, I grabbed my oldest pair of sneakers, the ones with the holes in the toes that I swear are more comfortable than any fancy running shoe, threw on a hoodie, and headed out. I had no real plan, just a vague sense of needing to, I don't know, connect with something bigger than myself. Dramatic, I know. But honestly, that's how it felt. I ended up at Riverside Park. It's this beautiful, sprawling green space by the river, usually bustling with families, dog walkers, and, well, let's just say its fair share of less than considerate picnickers. And that Saturday was no different. Kids were shrieking with laughter, dogs were chasing squirrels, frisbees were flying, the usual symphony of park life. But something else caught my ear, a sort of crinkling, rustling sound, like a giant bag of chips being crushed. And that's when I saw it. Trash. Everywhere. Not just the odd stray wrapper or forgotten water bottle, but heaps of it. Plastic bags tangled in the branches of the willow trees. Food containers overflowing the bins. Candy wrappers scattered like confetti across the grass. It was disheartening. Actually, scratch that, it was downright depressing. I felt a pang of, I don't know, shame? Guilt? I'd enjoyed this park countless times, blissfully unaware of, or perhaps just conveniently ignoring, the aftermath of everyone's good time. And suddenly, I knew what I needed to do. Now, I'm not going to lie, my first thought was, surely someone else will take care of this. But then, another voice, a much quieter one, whispered, why not you? So, there I was, this slightly too caffeinated woman in holey sneakers, standing in the middle of a park littered with the remnants of 1,000 picnics, feeling like a superhero in disguise. Or maybe just a slightly eccentric lady with a sudden urge for cleanliness. I went home, grabbed some heavy-duty garbage bags. Thank goodness for my hoarding tendencies. a pair of gardening gloves, because, ew, and a bottle of water. Back at the park, I took a deep breath and dove in. Literally. I mean, not literally dove into the trash, but you know what I mean. I started picking things up, one piece at a time. It was humbling, to say the least. I found everything you can imagine. Half-eaten hot dogs, sticky soda cans, crumpled napkins, broken toys, even a single, forlorn sock. Seriously, who loses just one sock in a park? At first, I was self-conscious. People were staring. Kids were pointing. One dog even tried to steal a particularly juicy-looking discarded chicken bone. Right out of my hand. But you know what? After a while, I stopped caring. I was in the zone. I was on a mission. I was a trash-collecting warrior. And then, the most amazing thing happened. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, came up to me, clutching a crumpled juice box in her tiny hand. "Can I help?" she asked, her eyes wide with earnest sincerity. My heart melted. "Of course, you can," I said, handing her a small bag. And then, another person joined in. A teenager with headphones around his neck. He didn't say anything, just picked up a discarded water bottle and tossed it in my bag. And then another, and another. Before I knew it, a small group of us were working together, transforming a littered landscape into something, well, not pristine, but definitely better. We chatted, we laughed, we shared stories. We even debated the merits of different trash-grabbing techniques. Turns out, using a stick to pick up particularly icky things is a game-changer. It was unexpected and beautiful. For hours, we worked, our small band of unlikely heroes, united by a shared purpose. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, and the air grew cool. We were tired, our backs ached, our hands were grimy, but we felt good. Really good. We filled bag after bag after bag with trash. I'd never seen so much garbage in my life. And yet, with every piece we picked up, I felt a little lighter, a little more hopeful. As we tied up the last bag, a park ranger walked by, a look of surprised appreciation on his face. "Wow," he said, shaking his head. "You guys did an amazing job. Thank you." And that, my friend, is the story of how I spent my Saturday. I didn't save the world. I didn't solve any major global crises. But I did something. Something small. Something tangible. Something that, in its own little way, made a difference. And you know what? It felt amazing. It felt like coming home. Like finally finding that missing piece of the puzzle. Like remembering who I was, or maybe, who I wanted to be. I went home that night, exhausted but exhilarated, smelling faintly of, well, let's just say park garbage. I took a long, hot shower, scrubbing away the grime and the guilt, and crawled into bed, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The next morning, I went back to the park. It wasn't perfect. There were still a few stray wrappers here and there. But it was better. Significantly better. And as I watched the little boy chase a bright red balloon across the freshly cleaned grass, I smiled. It wasn't just a park anymore. It was our park. And we had taken care of it. So, yeah, that's my story. The day I helped clean the park. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't particularly exciting. But it was real. And it taught me something valuable. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness, the simplest gestures of care, can have the biggest impact. And sometimes, all it takes is one person, one bag, one piece of trash at a time, to make a difference. You know what I mean? Okay. So, grab a cuppa. Settle in, because this is a story, a saga even, about my epic battle with a smartphone app. And not just any app. Oh no. This was a food delivery app. You know, the kind that promises culinary delights delivered right to your doorstep? Sounds simple, right? So not the case for yours truly. See, I'm, how shall we say, technologically challenged. I'm not against technology, mind you. I use a computer. I send emails, occasionally with the wrong attachment. But who's counting? I even figured out how to text, mostly. But smartphone apps? They felt like a whole different universe. A strange land filled with cryptic symbols and hidden menus. It all started with a craving. A deep, desperate craving for pad thai. It was a rainy Tuesday. I was home alone, buried under a mountain of paperwork, and the thought of cooking was about as appealing as wrestling a badger. So, my friend, Sarah, a digital native if there ever was one, suggested I use a food delivery app. It's so easy, she'd chirped. Just download the app, browse the restaurants, tap tap tap, and boom. Pad thai delivered. Famous last words, right? First hurdle. Downloading the app. I stared at the App Store icon, a little white square with a multicolored A inside, like it held some ancient secret. I poked it tentatively. Nothing. Poked it again, a little harder this time. Still nothing. I was about to give up and resign myself to a sad dinner of dry toast when Sarah called. "How's the pad thai coming?" she asked cheerfully. "Sarah," I said, my voice laced with despair. "I can't even get the app to download." Turns out, I was poking the icon, not pressing it. "A long press," she explained patiently. "A long press. Who knew? The world of technology, I tell you, it's a minefield." So, after a minor existential crisis and a quick lesson in long pressing, the app finally downloaded. It sat there on my home screen, a bright orange square mocking me with its promise of deliciousness. I tapped it, and then, it began. The app opened to a dizzying array of options. Restaurants, cuisines, filters, search bars, promotions. It was sensory overload. I felt like I'd been dropped into the middle of a bustling marketplace, with vendors shouting, aromas mingling, and a general sense of controlled chaos. Where do I even begin? I scrolled through endless lists of restaurants, each with more enticing photos than the last. Italian, Indian, Mexican, sushi. My stomach rumbled, but the pad thai, oh, that pad thai was calling to me. So, I typed pad thai into the search bar. And guess what? Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. I blinked. I checked my spelling. Padthai. Correct. So, where was it? I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. Was this some kind of cosmic joke? Was the universe conspiring to keep me from my pad thai? I called Sarah again, practically in tears. "There's no pad thai," I wailed. "The app is broken." After a few minutes of gentle questioning, and a lot of stifled laughter on her end, she discovered the problem. I hadn't entered my location. Apparently, The app needed to know where I was before it could show me nearby restaurants serving pad thai. Duh. It seemed obvious in hindsight, but remember, I'm a technological novice. We're talking baby steps here. Finally, I found a nearby Thai restaurant with pad thai on the menu. I clicked on it, and a new screen appeared, showcasing the dish in all its glory. Steaming noodles, vibrant vegetables, crunchy peanuts. My mouth watered. But then came the next hurdle. Customizing the order. Did I want shrimp or chicken? Mild, medium, or hot? Extra peanuts? Noodles on the side? It was like a culinary quiz, and I was failing miserably. I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my forehead. Ordering food should not be this complicated. I ended up clicking random options, hoping for the best. And then came the dreaded payment screen. I had to enter my credit card details. My precious, secret credit card details. Into this app. I hesitated. What if it was a scam? What if some hacker stole my information and bought a yacht with my money? I paced around the living room, clutching my phone, wrestling with my paranoia. The smell of rain drifted in through the open window, mingling with my growing hunger. Pad thai. I needed that pad thai. Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes and entered the information. It felt like a leap of faith, like jumping off a cliff and hoping for a soft landing. I pressed confirm order. And then, silence. Nothing happened. The screen just stayed there, frozen. My heart sank. Had I done something wrong? Had the app crashed? Had my order been lost in the digital ether? I was about to throw my phone across the room when a little notification popped up. Your order has been placed. Relief washed over me, so intense it almost brought tears to my eyes. I had done it. I had conquered the food delivery app. I slumped onto the sofa, exhausted but triumphant. An hour later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a delivery driver holding a steaming bag of pad thai. The aroma hit me like a wave. Warm, savory, peanut-y perfection. I paid him, grabbed the bag, and practically inhaled the contents. It was the most delicious pad thai I had ever tasted. So, yeah, my first foray into the world of food delivery apps was a bit of a roller coaster. There were moments of frustration, confusion, and near despair. But in the end, I prevailed. I learned to long press, to enter my location, to navigate the confusing menus, and to trust that my credit card wouldn't be used to finance someone's Caribbean getaway. And most importantly, I got my pad thai. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. And you know what? It felt pretty darn good. Now, ordering food is a breeze. I can even customize my order without breaking a sweat. I'm practically a pro. Well, maybe not a pro, but I'm definitely not the terrified, app-phobic newbie I once was. And that, my friend, is progress. Now, whose turn is it to make the tea? I'm feeling quite peckish after all that talk about pad thai. Maybe I should order some more, just to practice my app skills. Just kidding, unless learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain. But you know what? It's totally doable, and even enjoyable. One trick that really helps is talking to yourself in the mirror. It works. Honestly, it might feel a little silly at first, but it's like having a conversation partner who's always available. It boosts your confidence, helps you get comfortable with the sounds, and you can even practice different expressions. You will not believe how much it helps with fluency. And here's another fun idea. Reading jokes and reacting to them aloud. Imagine yourself cooking dinner or going for a walk, and you read a funny joke. Try saying the punchline aloud, with the right intonation and expression. It's such a light-hearted way to practice pronunciation and get used to speaking naturally, without even realizing you're studying. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? Struggling to express opinions confidently is something so many learners experience. It's completely natural to feel a little shy or unsure at times, especially when sharing your thoughts in a new language. Remember, every little step you take is progress, and your voice deserves to be heard. Speaking of connecting with others, I remember meeting someone at a language exchange event and feeling instantly comfortable just chatting in English. And you know what? We became great friends. It got me thinking. Have you ever made friends through English practice? I'd love to hear your stories. So, you know how sometimes you just get this urge to do something crafty, something sentimental. Well, that hit me like a ton of bricks last Sunday. I was curled up on the sofa, the rain drumming against the window pane, such a cozy sound, right? And I was scrolling through Pinterest, as you do. And then I saw it. A memory jar. Now, I'm not usually one for these cutesy DIY projects. Seriously, glitter and glue guns? Not my scene. But something about this memory jar idea. It just resonated. Maybe it was the rain. Maybe it was the fact that I'd just finished a really good book that left me all emotional. Or maybe, and this is probably the real reason, I was procrastinating on doing laundry. Who knows? Anyway, this memory jar, it looked so simple, so hopeful. The idea is basically this. You write down little happy memories on slips of paper and put them in a jar. Then, at the end of the year, or whenever you need a pick-me-up, you open it and read them. Instant mood booster. I thought, hey, I could use a little bit of instant mood boosting in my life. So, I decided to give it a whirl. First things first. The jar. Now, I envisioned something beautiful, you know? Like one of those vintage apothecary jars with a fancy label. But a quick rummage through my cupboards revealed nothing remotely glamorous. The closest I got was an old pickle jar. Yes, a pickle jar. It still had a faint vinegary smell, which, let me tell you, isn't exactly conducive to happy memories. But, hey, waste not, want not, right? I scrubbed that jar within an inch of its life, and thankfully, the pickle scent eventually surrendered. Next, the paper. I'm a bit of a stationery nerd, so this was the fun part. I pulled out my stash, patterned paper, colored cardstock, even some handmade paper I'd bought at a craft fair. I figured, why not make it a feast for the eyes, too? I cut the paper into small squares, enough to fit a short memory. And then, the writing. This is where things got interesting. I sat down at my kitchen table, armed with my colorful paper squares and a pen, and drew a blank. It's funny, isn't it? You think you have all these happy memories stored away, readily available, but when you actually try to pin them down, poof. They vanish like smoke. I sat there for a good 15 minutes, staring at a blank piece of paper, the pickle jar mocking me from the countertop. The rain outside had stopped, and a sliver of sun was peeking through the clouds. It felt like the universe was saying, come on, get a move on. Surely you have something happy to remember? Finally, I squeezed out a memory. It was a small one, nothing earth-shattering. Laughing so hard with Sarah at that terrible movie we saw last month. I wrote it down, folded the little square of paper, and dropped it into the jar. Clink. That little sound, I swear, it was like a tiny celebration. And then, another memory surfaced. The smell of freshly baked bread at the farmer's market last weekend. Clink. Finding a $5 bill in my coat pocket. Clink. Slowly, steadily, the jar began to fill. Some memories were big, like the time I graduated college, or the day I adopted my cat, Jasper. Others were small, seemingly insignificant moments. A warm hug from a friend, a beautiful sunset, the first sip of coffee on a cold morning. But each one, no matter how small, held a spark of joy. As I wrote, I realized something. It wasn't just about the big, obvious happy moments. It was about the little things, the everyday moments that often go unnoticed. It was about paying attention to the good, even amidst the chaos and the mundane. You know what I mean? It was like training myself to see the beauty in the ordinary. Of course, not every memory was sunshine and rainbows. There were some bittersweet ones, too. Memories of loved ones who were no longer here. Memories of times that were challenging, but ultimately made me stronger. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if those belonged in the jar. But then I thought, why not? These are part of my story, too. They're the shadows that make the light shine brighter. So, I wrote them down, tears blurring my vision a little, and added them to the collection. Guess what happened next? I got totally carried away. I started raiding my photo albums, scrolling through old text messages, even calling my mom to jog my memory. It became this amazing journey down memory lane. I rediscovered forgotten moments, laughed at silly inside jokes, and felt a pang of nostalgia for times gone by. By the time evening rolled around, the pickle jar, my now glorious memory jar, was almost full. I held it up to the light, the colorful slips of paper shimmering inside. It looked magical, honestly. Like the little treasure chest filled with happiness. And you know what? I felt lighter, happier, more grateful. It wasn't just the memories themselves. It was the act of remembering, of taking the time to appreciate the good things in my life. It was a reminder that even on the toughest days, there's always something to be thankful for. Now, the jar sits on my bookshelf, a colorful beacon of positivity. I haven't opened it yet. I'm saving it for a special occasion, or maybe just a day when I need a little extra dose of happiness. But even just knowing it's there, filled with those little snippets of joy, it makes me smile. It's a reminder that life is a collection of moments, and it's up to us to choose which ones we hold onto. So, what do you think? Maybe you should try making your own memory jar. You might be surprised at what you discover. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you get this urge. This burning desire to learn something completely new? That's how it was with me in sushi. I love sushi. Like, truly, madly, deeply. I could eat it every day. But making it? That seemed like some mystical art form reserved for, I don't know, culinary ninjas. So, picture this. It's a drizzly Saturday afternoon. The kind of day where the world outside is muted and cozy, and all you want to do is curl up with a good book. Or, apparently, wrestle with seaweed. I decided, quite spontaneously, that this was the day. The day I'd conquer the art of sushi making. I'd watched countless YouTube tutorials, read blog posts, even borrowed a proper bamboo rolling mat from my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, bless her heart. My kitchen counter was a chaotic landscape of ingredients. Sticky rice steaming in the pot, vibrant vegetables chopped into neat little soldiers, glistening slabs of salmon and tuna, and a bowl of nori sheets staring back at me, dark and mysterious. The smell, oh the smell. It was a wonderful mix of the salty sea from the nori, the subtle sweetness of the rice vinegar, and the freshness of the cucumber and avocado. It felt hopeful, like the beginning of a great adventure, you know? My first challenge, and boy, was this a challenge, was the rice. Now, I'd always thought cooking rice was simple, right? Water, rice, heat. Done. Oh, how naive I was. Sushi rice, my friends, is a whole different beast. It has to be sticky, but not gooey. It needs to have this specific texture, this cling, that holds the roll together. I swear, I rinsed that rice more times than I've washed my hair in a month, trying to get it just right. Then came the vinegar mixture. A precise dance of rice vinegar, sugar, and salt. Too much vinegar, and it's overpowering. Too little, and it's bland. I nervously drizzled it over the still steaming rice, gently folding it in with the rice paddle, another essential tool borrowed from Mrs. Rodriguez. It felt strange, warm and slightly squishy between my fingers. The rolling mat, that was another story. You know how in the videos, the chefs make it look so effortless? Like they're just casually flipping and tucking, and poof, a perfect roll? Yeah, not so much for me. My first attempt resembled, well, let's just say it looked less like a sushi roll and more like the seaweed burrito that had been in a minor car accident. The nori, damp and delicate, kept tearing under my clumsy fingers. The filling, which I'd ambitiously overstuffed, kept spilling out the sides. The rolling mat, well, let's just say it and I weren't exactly on speaking terms. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. Was I just not cut out for this? Should I just give up and order takeout? But then, I took a deep breath, the scent of the vinegar and seaweed filling my lungs. I reminded myself why I'd started this in the first place. It wasn't about achieving instant perfection. It was about the process, the learning, the sheer joy of trying something new. So, I started again. This time, I took it slower. I spread the rice more evenly, using dampened fingertips to prevent sticking. I placed the filling with a bit more restraint, remembering the tragic fate of my overstuffed burrito roll. And I focused on the rolling mat, trying to mimic the fluid movements I'd seen in the videos. Guess what happened next? It kind of worked. It wasn't perfect, mind you. It was a little lopsided, a little squished, but it held together. A genuine, bona fide sushi roll, made by me. I couldn't help but grin. It felt triumphant, like I'd climbed a small mountain made of rice and seaweed. I made another one, and another. Each roll got a little neater, a little tighter, a little more sushi-like. I experimented with different fillings: avocado and cucumber, spicy tuna, smoked salmon and cream cheese. My kitchen became a sushi-making laboratory, filled with the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of the knife against the cutting board, the gentle rustle of the nori sheets, and the occasional muttered curse when a roll went rogue. By the time the rain had stopped and the sun was beginning to peek through the clouds, I had a platter full of homemade sushi rolls. They weren't perfect, not by a long shot, but they were mine. And they were delicious. I called Mrs. Rodriguez over, and we sat on my little balcony, sharing my slightly wonky sushi creations and stories. The air was fresh and clean after the rain, and the setting sun painted the sky in hues of pink and orange. We laughed about my initial struggles, marveled at my eventual, somewhat, success, and talked about everything and nothing, like old friends do. That day, I learned more than just how to make sushi rolls. I learned about patience, perseverance, and the importance of embracing imperfection. I learned that even the most intimidating tasks can be conquered with a little bit of effort, a lot of humor, and a dash of borrowed kitchen equipment. And you know what? The sushi tasted even better because I knew I'd made it myself. Every slightly squished roll, every imperfectly cut piece, was a testament to my determination, my willingness to learn, and my love for all things sushi. It wasn't just food, it was a story. My story. And I can't wait to share the next chapter. Maybe involving tempura, who knows? With you sometime. Hey everyone. Learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, right? But think of it this way. Enjoy the struggle. It's part of your story. Each mistake, each hesitant pause, each time you reach for a word and find it all adds to your unique journey. These little struggles are actually proof that you're growing, that you're pushing yourself, and that's something to be incredibly proud of. You are building something amazing, one word at a time. You know what can be a really fun way to practice? Pretending to be a travel vlogger. Imagine you're exploring your own city, or even just your kitchen. Describe what you see, what you're doing, what you're cooking, anything. It's such a simple way to get comfortable speaking out loud, and you can do it anytime, anywhere. Honestly, it feels a little silly at first, but it really works. I tried it while making breakfast the other day and you will not believe how much easier it made talking later that day. Avoiding speaking because of past embarrassing moments? I totally get it. We've all been there. That awkward silence after you mispronounce a word, or the time you accidentally said something completely different from what you meant. It can be so discouraging. But remember, everyone who learns a language goes through these experiences. They're a natural part of the process, and they don't define your ability. You are learning, and that's what matters. And you know what? Thinking about this reminded me of a time I heard someone speaking English with an Australian accent, and I was completely captivated. It just sounded so different and interesting. Which English accent do you find most interesting? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Okay, so, you know how sometimes you get this itch? Not a literal itch, but like a yearning. A deep down, gotta do this thing kind of feeling? Well, that's how I felt about the violin. For years, I'd see violinists on TV, or hear them in a movie soundtrack, and this wave of longing would wash over me. The way they could weave this beautiful, almost magical sound, it just captivated me. I must have been, maybe 10 or 11? I remember the exact moment, actually. We were at this outdoor concert in the park, and this woman in a flowing red dress was playing Vivaldi's Four Seasons. The sun was setting, casting this warm, golden glow over everything, and the music, it was like liquid light. Right then and there, I decided I had to learn to play. Convincing my parents, though, that was a different story. My dad was all practical. Do you even know how much violins cost? And my mom, bless her heart, was worried I'd give up after a week, just like I did with the recorder. But I was persistent. I pleaded, I negotiated. I even promised to do extra chores for a whole month. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they agreed. The day my violin arrived, I was practically buzzing with excitement. It came in this big, dark case, smelling faintly of wood and varnish. I remember carefully lifting the lid, and there it was, nestled in deep crimson velvet. It was smaller than I imagined, this rich, honey-colored wood gleaming under the light. I ran my fingers over the smooth curves, the delicate scroll at the top. It felt like a precious secret. My first lesson? Oh, honey, that was a humbling experience. My teacher, Mrs. Petrov, was this tiny, elegant woman with a fierce passion for music. She had this thick Russian accent, and her eyes, they just sparkled when she talked about the violin. She showed me how to hold the bow, how to rosin it, which, by the way, is way messier than it looks. And how to place my fingers on the strings. Easy peasy, right? Wrong. My first attempts at producing a sound were less than melodious. Let's just say it sounded more like a strangled cat than anything resembling music. Scratchy, squeaky, and completely out of tune. Mrs. Petrov, though, she was incredibly patient. She'd gently adjust my fingers, her touch surprisingly firm, and say, "No, no, darling. Feel the string. Listen to the sound." You know, learning the violin is like learning a new language. It's not just about moving your fingers and drawing the bow. It's about feeling the vibrations, understanding the nuances, communicating something through the instrument. And honestly, at first, I felt like I was speaking gibberish. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, painstakingly slowly, I started to make progress. I'd spend hours practicing, my fingers aching, my ears ringing. Scales, arpeggios, simple melodies, they were my constant companions. There were days when I wanted to throw the violin across the room. Days when I felt like I'd never get it right. But then, there were those magical moments. Those moments when the notes would flow, and the sound would come out clear and true. And I'd feel this rush of pure joy. It was addictive. I remember one particular lesson. I was working on a piece by Bach. It was a simple minuet, but it had this beautiful, delicate melody. I'd been struggling with it for weeks. The rhythm just wouldn't click. Then, one day, during my lesson with Mrs. Petrov, something shifted. It's hard to explain, but it was like my fingers suddenly understood. The bow glided across the strings, and the notes danced in the air. I played the entire piece, from beginning to end, without a single mistake. When I finished, there was this silence. Mrs. Petrov just sat there, her eyes closed, a small smile playing on her lips. Then, she opened her eyes, and they were filled with tears. "Beautiful, darling," she whispered. "Absolutely beautiful." In that moment, I felt this incredible sense of accomplishment. It wasn't just about playing the notes correctly. It was about connecting with the music, expressing something deep within myself. The day I finally performed in public, I was a nervous wreck. It was a small recital at the local community center, but it felt like Carnegie Hall to me. My palms were sweating, my heart was pounding, and I could barely breathe. I remember standing backstage, clutching my violin like a lifeline, thinking, what have I gotten myself into? But then, as I walked onto the stage, and saw the faces in the audience, something calmed me. I took a deep breath, placed my chin on the chin rest, and lifted my bow. The first note rang out, clear and strong, and all my nervousness melted away. I played the piece, the same Bach minuet I'd struggled with for so long, and it flowed effortlessly. I wasn't just playing the notes, I was telling a story. I was sharing a piece of myself with the world. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. It wasn't the loudest applause, mind you, but it was heartfelt. I saw my parents in the front row, their faces beaming with pride. And in that moment, I knew that this was what I wanted to do. This was my passion. Learning to play the violin wasn't easy. It took time, dedication, and a whole lot of patience. There were moments of frustration, moments of self-doubt, moments when I wanted to give up. But it was worth it. Every single struggle, every single squeak and scratch, led me to that moment on stage, that feeling of pure, unadulterated joy. And that, my friend, is the story of how I learned to play the violin. So, what do you think? Not bad for a strangled cat, huh? Just kidding. But seriously, it's been a journey. And it's a journey I'm still on, still learning, still growing, still discovering the magic that lies within those 4 strings. You know what I mean? It's like uncovering a secret language, one note at a time. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Sighing dramatically, so, you know how sometimes you just crave something specific, something singy? That was me last Tuesday. Rain was hammering against the window pane. The sky was this depressing shade of gray, you know. The kind that makes you want to burrow under a blanket and never come out? And all I could think about was green chutney. Bright, vibrant, fiery green chutney. It wasn't even a logical craving. I had no samosas to dunk it in, no pakoras to slather it on. Just a desperate need for that burst of flavor. That electric green jolt to my system. You ever get that? That almost primal urge for a particular taste? Anyway, the fridge, of course, was a wasteland. Like a culinary Sahara. A sad, wilted cucumber, a lonely tomato, you get the picture. Nothing even remotely chutney-esque. And going to the store? In that downpour? Forget it. I'd rather wrestle a badger. So, I did the only thing a desperate, chutney-craving woman could do. I decided to make it from scratch. With, shall we say, limited resources. Now, my grandmother, bless her soul, could whip up a green chutney in her sleep. A symphony of cilantro, mint, chilies, ginger, garlic, magic, pure magic. Me? Well, let's just say my culinary skills are evolving. I opened the fridge again, hoping for a miracle, some hidden stash of cilantro. Nope. Just that same forlorn cucumber staring back at me. But wait, what's this lurking behind the milk carton? A bag of spinach. Slightly wilted, a bit sad looking, but spinach nonetheless. Right. Spinach chutney it is. Don't judge me. Desperate times, desperate measures, and all that. So, I pulled out my ancient blender, the one that sounds like a small aircraft taking off. The lid's a bit wonky, doesn't quite close properly anymore, but it still gets the job done, mostly. Into the blender went the spinach, a couple of rather sorry-looking green chilies, I found them hiding at the back of the vegetable drawer. They were probably from last week. But, hey, still had some kick. A knob of ginger that had seen better days. A small, lonely clove of garlic. And, well, that was about it. Oh, and a squeeze of lemon. Because every chutney needs lemon, right? Even a slightly unconventional one. I peered into the blender, at the rather uninspiring green mush. It looked, if I'm being honest, a bit like something you'd find in a swamp. Not exactly the vibrant, verdant green I had envisioned. But, you know, hope springs eternal. I blitzed it. The blender roared to life, shaking the entire kitchen counter. I half expected the lid to fly off and splatter spinach chili goo all over the ceiling. Luckily, that didn't happen. I cautiously opened the lid, peering inside. The result? Well, it was green. Sort of. More of a murky olive green. And the texture? Let's just say it wasn't quite the smooth, vibrant chutney of my dreams. It was lumpy. Very lumpy. I poked it with a spoon. It glopped back at me. Defeated, I almost chucked the whole thing in the sink. But then, that craving, that insistent, nagging craving for that zingy, spicy kick, it wouldn't let me give up. So, I took a deep breath, and decided to salvage the situation. Back to the fridge. What else could I add? Aha! A small bunch of coriander. A bit yellowing around the edges, but still, coriander. A glimmer of hope. And then, a stroke of genius. A small, almost forgotten jar of roasted peanuts. Crunchy, salty, perfect. Into the blender they went, along with a pinch of salt, a dash of cumin powder. Found it hiding behind a jar of ancient pickles, and, just for kicks, a teaspoon of sugar. You know, to balance the flavors. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Another round of blitzing, the blender screaming in protest. And, miracle of miracles, the chutney actually started to resemble, well, chutney. The color brightened, the lumps smoothed out, the aroma. Oh, the aroma. Spicy, tangy, nutty. It was, actually, quite good. I tentatively dipped a finger in, and tasted it. My eyes widened. It was amazing. Not my grandmother's chutney, not by a long shot. But it was my chutney, born out of desperation, salvaged from the brink of disaster. It was spicy, tangy, with a hint of sweetness and that wonderful crunch from the peanuts. The rain was still hammering against the window, the sky still a depressing shade of gray. But inside, in my little kitchen, there was a small, vibrant burst of green. And a very happy chutney satisfied me. I ended up eating it straight from the blender, with a spoon. No samosas, no pakoras. Just me, the chutney, and the satisfying feeling of having conquered my craving against all odds. It wasn't perfect, not even close. But it was real, it was mine, and on that gloomy Tuesday, it was exactly what I needed. You know what I mean. Sometimes, the most unexpected creations, the ones born out of necessity, are the most satisfying. And sometimes, all you need is a little bit of green to brighten up a gray day. So, yeah, that's the story of my slightly unconventional spinach and peanut chutney. What do you think? Fancy trying some sometime? Don't worry, I'll use fresh cilantro next time. Maybe. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching and for spending this time with me. It really means a lot to have you here. I hope you found something useful or interesting today. Before we go, I'd love for you to follow, like, subscribe, and share this video so you can stay up to date with our new daily content on English speaking and listening. And it made me wonder, are you thinking of trying a new cafe or restaurant soon? It's always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans is a fantastic way to practice expressing yourself in English and connecting with others. Sharing little snippets of your life brightens my day, truly. See you tomorrow, and remember to take good care of yourselves and keep practicing.